The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to The Timeline, a Josh Okogie fan podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, how's it going?
It's going pretty well, man. We had such a depressing episode last week. I don't know if it was even entirely depressing. We tried to talk about like some good things, but this was a much better week with the game we got last night. As soon as we had the game last night, you and we texted each other. We were like, "Yep, we're
Thank
set.
God.
We're
Yeah.
set. Thank God. We can go into Sunday and
They're on a win streak.
Even in first of all, yes, they are on a win streak. The win, what was it, Thursday against the Clippers?
Mm-hmm.
Look, against the Clippers D League, or D squad or whatever, and it is what it is. But A, they're on a win streak, and B, more importantly, perhaps, we have Devin Booker. And even in the darkest moments for this team right now, what a way to break out of a slump for Devin Booker.
He went nutso.
Nutso.
He went nutso. 58 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and probably, I'm not even going to say probably, he should have had over 60 considering he was 10 for 15 from the line. And there was a point of the game where he could have had free throws numbers 16 and 17 had Chris Paul passed him the ball at the end of the game instead of just taking the fouls himself. One of the best games I think we've ever seen him play. I think the obvious part is the 58 points, right? That's obvious. But the circumstances of the game were such that without what he did, not only would the Suns have lost, they would have been thoroughly embarrassed for the third time in a row by a team that treats them as their biggest enemy, which I think all of those circumstances combined made it. I couldn't believe what I was watching as I was watching it happen. Steph is the only other one, I think, but there's really very few guys that just get hot the way that Devin Booker gets hot when he plays, and it's just everything comes easy to him when he's playing like this, and we've seen it. There's obvious games that come to mind. There's the famous Philadelphia game. There's the 70-point game. There's 59 points against the Jazz. There was a game not that long ago that he had, I think, 49 points and that he had a similar type of streak where he was hitting shots. But this game was just so different in that the circumstance, they were talking about 24 points and he scored 25 in a row and then they won.
Well, and that's exactly it. I mean, they were down 24 and they were on this path to destruction, right? And the context that you gave, that it was going to be a third loss in a week against the New Orleans Pelicans, which, is being hyped up now. Maybe we should talk about this as the NBA's biggest rivalry. I don't know if I'm fully
overhyped, maybe.
I think that's why we should talk about it, because I'm 50% there. I'm definitely not 100% there. I think there are points to be made on both sides. But as it relates to Booker, it's kind of interesting to think about the guys who can get that hot in this league, right? You mentioned Steph, obviously.
Yeah.
Dame,
I
would say
probably.
Dame, I guess. I would say KD, just because KD, I guess where to start with, the level of difficulty on every single shot as a triple threat scorer, that's what is so impressive just generally about Book, and it was on full display last night. The mid-range shots, at a certain point, like the turning the corner on Zion, trapping him, and then hitting
or anyone
a ridiculous falling out of bounds, like three from the corner,
that's when I was like, all right, this is insane.
And also
finishing
through contact. He got 3 or 4 different and ones. So, who else around the league can do that? KD's kind of the first guy I think of traditionally, maybe historically, but even him, it's like KD will get you a consistent 30 or 35. He doesn't have many nights off because he always finds something. I'm not sure that even he heats up in a single quarter the way that Booker kind of has a tendency to do, and the way that we've seen a couple times recently.
I have some stats on that for you that I will hold off on for now as we talk about this game, but I have some things I want to put this in historical context for you.
Okay, and I'm happy to hear them. I mean, for me, it's just like with the stats, there are Booker stats every year, every month, every week at this point that just continue to astound me. Last night, it was our friend Dan from Hardwood Knocks, Dan Favale, who shared that Devin Booker now has more career 50-point games than Carmelo Anthony, which is like, I think we've always kind of had greater ambitions for Booker. Not always, but like in recent years, had greater ambitions for Booker than just being Carmelo Anthony. We want him to win a ring. We want him to be like a Hall of Famer, obviously. But like Carmelo Anthony's one of the great scorers that you think of the last generation. And Booker's already there where he has more 50-point games than Carmelo Anthony. Like, that's insane to me. Last year, the stat was that he already has more career points than Kawhi Leonard, which I guess kind of makes sense, like given that Kawhi has missed so much time. But you think about it, it's like Kawhi Leonard is one of the most respected stars of his generation, of the past like 10 years or so. And Devin Booker is 26 years old and he already has more career points. He is going to be, I mean, just where he ends up on the all-time leaderboards, he's already like crushing all of the records for Phoenix in terms of the franchise records, but just where he's going to end up on the all-time NBA leaderboards as well, it's going to be special. I mean, it just is.
There were so many moments in this game before Devin Booker started to do his thing where I thought the game was over, and it just felt over. As early as in the first quarter, when they just couldn't, the Pelicans could not miss a single shot. Najee Marshall threw up a desperation shot at the end of the shot clock that bounced off the backboard and in, another 3-point shot for the Pelicans. And I just thought, okay, well, this just isn't our night. I was already giving up in the first quarter. And I think you think about this game where the Suns won. Yes, they were without Brandon Ingram, and credit to the Pelicans for playing as well as they did early in the game. CJ McCollum couldn't miss anything either in the first half. That all changed in the second half, but credit to them for even being there. But the Suns, they started Bismack Biyombo, and they started Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig is still starting. We'll talk about him a little bit later.
Arguably, Bismack Biyombo makes us better. Now, I mean, I'm not really going to go there. I did share the stat today. The Suns, going back to last season when they first signed Bismack Biyombo, they improved last night to 7-0, undefeated when Bismack Biyombo starts at center. He started 3 games last year. They won all 3 of those. I think it's more impressive, actually, that Bismack has already started 4 games this season, and they've won all 4. That's no slight against DeAndre Ayton. That's not where I'm going with this conversation.
Yeah.
I do think it says something, though, that Biz holds his own to that level that you can still win games with him as a starter. That's really impressive.
He's Rudy Gobert light. That's kind of how he plays for the Suns. But in this game, Najee Marshall hit that 3. CJ McCollum just stayed hot through the end of the second quarter and even started the third quarter with a 3-point hit just to start the third quarter. The Suns were down by as much as 24 points. This was the largest comeback by the Suns in the last 10 years. It was 2012 that they had a comeback that was larger than this.
That's insane
for the Suns. And it's not just, that Devin Booker was on fire. The other part of it was for the first 3 quarters of this game, nobody else could make a thing. They could not make a shot.
They hit a few threes. They got off to a 5-10 point lead and then just evaporated, right? Like they were stuck at 4 for 19 from deep at some point.
The fourth quarter started. The Suns had 84 points. Devin Booker had 42 of them. That's where they were at in the game. And then he went on to score 16 more. In that fourth quarter and for the Suns to win. By the way, 16 more not in the fourth quarter, in the first 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. And then they just started hard trapping him. And then, a lot of interesting things that we could talk about later. And the Suns still found a way to win off of that. And they beat the Pelicans. And then Devin Booker with the petty 3-point attempt.
Oh my God.
At the end.
Could you imagine?
It's just so great. Yeah.
Could you imagine? That would have been the greatest highlight I've ever seen in a regular season basketball game. If he had made this deep logo 3 to give him 59, 60, and then a 61st point, knowing what had transpired. And to be honest,
which would make it, by the way, the highest scoring game of the season had he made that. I think we talked about it too. I don't care about the Zion dunk. I think he had every right to do it.
I think he did it on his home floor, and I think he riled up the fans, and I think they loved it, and you know, that's what being a fan is about. But
also, just being petty is kind of fun in the NBA.
If Booker had come back with that level of pettiness,
yeah,
what a great fuck you that would have been. It's just such a... It's
shooting it, I think, was a message in itself, right? You know, just the fact that he shot it, he knew what he was doing. Everyone on the court knew what he was doing. The broadcasters talked about it. He was sending a message just by shooting it. And it was clearly a launch. He could have even got a few steps closer had he wanted to.
I assume someone did. I actually don't even know. Did someone ask him... I mean, the answer's obvious, right? But did someone ask Booker post-game, why did you take that shot?
I don't remember him being asked that.
Because I would have just been like, it's funny. if you don't think it's... I mean, like, I'm not media trained, and there are many reasons I'm not an NBA player, but in cases like that, just be like, lighten the fuck up. It's funny. If anyone has a problem with it, it's objectively hilarious.
Devin Booker scored his 57th point. That was his last field goal made. He had a free throw to get up to 58 after that. When he hit his 57th point, he became the 6th youngest player to reach 12,000 points. You're talking about his ability to climb the all-time record books. That's an example. 6th youngest player. He's on track to score a lot of points in the NBA. LeBron tweeted about it. Said Devin Booker's going Nutso. Suns fan favorite, Kyle Kuzma, tweeted about it and said Book.
Yep.
KCP tweeted about it too, which I thought was interesting. He said Book's going crazy. Lots of people in the NBA watching that game after the last two games, most of them cheering for the Suns' downfall, which made it especially exciting as a fan to watch Devin Booker do that. But as you stated, flying up the Suns' record books is Devin Booker. I went through and I looked at a bunch of different stats here. I want to go over some of these with you and just talk about where he stands as far as best players all time for the Suns. Let's just start here. 6th in points for the Suns is Devin Booker right now, right? Obviously played his entire career with Phoenix. 6th overall in points. 9th?
Put me to the test. Do you have the list of the top 5?
I don't. I could bring it up, but no.
It's okay.
9th in minutes played for the Suns. 6th in field goals made for the Suns, 2nd in three-pointers made, 5th in free throws, and 9th in assists. These are all as it pertains to the Phoenix Suns franchise. 2nd in games with 20 or more points. Do you know who's number 1 in that one?
Let's see. He's 2nd. I'm going to guess Walter Davis is first.
Correct.
Okay.
Walter Davis is first.
Not because he was the most prolific scorer the Suns ever had.
That's exactly right.
On like a per game basis, but because he played there for a decade plus.
And he was just super consistent.
Yeah.
As far as scoring 20 points, but you add 25 points in there, Devin Booker passes him pretty easily. And you add 30 points, because Devin Booker's number 1, by the way, in the rest of the stats, 25, 30, 40, 50. But if you go up to 25 points, he's first.
70.
If you go up to 30 points, for example, Devin Booker is second in games with 20 or more points, first in games with 30 or more points, and the difference between him and Walter Davis here is 151 to 90. That's the level of scorer that Devin Booker is, right?
That's
he has
wild.
61 more games with 30 or more points than Walter Davis, who has more games with 20 or more points, because Devin Booker just scores more. He has the most 40-point games. I want to quiz you on this one.
Sure.
At 23.
Oh, I've looked at this recently.
So and yeah, you know who number 2 is, right?
Yeah, it's Amari Stoudemire.
Yeah, which we can save a conversation about him for later that we can have as far as him being in the news right now. But Amari,
maybe that should 15. Be on the Patreon. But yeah, I know what you mean.
15 to Devin Booker's 23, and Book has 5 games with 50 or more points. The only other player even close is Tom Chambers with 2.
You know what's...
And Devin Booker, by the way, 26 years old.
You know what's insane to me is on that 40-point list, Charles Barkley, and I know he only played 4 seasons in Phoenix, right? So, like, you don't expect Barkley to be on any of the all-time... Like, he's an all-time great Sun, but you don't expect him to be leading those categories. But, like, I think he's at 3, if my memory is serving me correctly. Like, I think he has 3 40-point games in 4 seasons in Phoenix, and he won MVP. as a 26 point per game scorer or something like that. That's not to take anything away from Chuck, but like the level of scoring that we're seeing from Devin Booker is it's absurd. Like you could take Amari
faster, right? There's more shots being taken now, things like that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but like that serves maybe that goes against the 90s or even the 2000s guys. Walter Davis played in an era where they had 5,000 possessions per game in the 80s. I mean, they didn't shoot threes, in fairness to them, until like later on in the decade when they started shooting more threes. But I don't know. It's pretty impressive. Like you could, that 40 point per game list or 40 just total number of games with 40 plus points. Booker has 23, you said. You could take Amari. You could add Chuck. Mm-hmm. You could add Nash, obviously, who I think only has 1 or 2. And all of them combined, it's still less than Devin Booker.
Yeah, that's right. There are a lot of players in the NBA with 50 or more point games. But Devin Booker has 3 games total with 55 or more points. We know those 3 games, right? You can probably think of them by memory, obviously.
Yep.
Yesterday's game, we're recording this on Sunday. The 70-point game, do you remember the third one?
So yesterday, the 70-point game and the 59-point game in Utah where Jimmer denied him 60.
Yeah.
And in the same sense that Jimmer denied him, because I saw people bringing this up yesterday, I thought it was hilarious. Jimmer, for those who don't remember that game a few years ago, what was he, a 10-day contract? Or
yeah, I think so.
10-day contract.
10-day contract specifically signed to sell tickets to Mormons, I think.
to sell tickets to this. I don't know if it was that dire, but I do remember there was this certain revolving door of like 10-day contract point guards at a certain point during that 18-19 season, even before then, where the Suns were like, just please, God, can we get any production out of any of these guys? And the answer in most cases was no. There were 1 or 2 names who passed through during those seasons that the Suns had to 10 days, like Seth Curry, for instance, I remember, to a 10-day contract, didn't do anything with them. I don't even know if he survived to a second 10-day. It might have just been one and done, and then became like a good rotation player after that. So there are success stories, but 95% of the time you get nothing out of these guys. And Jimmer was part of the 95%. And in this particular game, I'm sure everyone remembers, but just denying Devin Booker shots in the fourth quarter of that game while he just could not make a shot in Utah to save his life, enraged Suns fans, absolutely enraged them. And who was it last night denying Devin Booker at the very end one final possession that he maybe could have taken a shot or at the very least gotten fouled and made it to the free throw line? Yes, it was Chris Paul. Chris Paul and Jimmer Fredette, possibly where the similarities between those two players start and end.
So Devin Booker has 3 games with 55 or more points right now. There are 3 active players in the NBA that have more games with 55 or more points. 3 active players in the NBA. Wow. Do you want to try to guess who those 3 are?
Dude, 55 is so fucking much. Who has done that more than 3 times?
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
I can give you one hint. There's one player with 11, which is crazy. One player with 5 and one player with 4, and Devin Booker has 3.
Okay, 11, 5, and 4. Okay, so Harden's the 11.
It's correct. Yeah.
Okay, because that was the season in Houston where he just was rattling off 50-point games all the time, which I think people like. I understand why, but just as a quick tangent, I understand why that Harden experience in Houston kind of aged poorly. The experience of just watching him, like, it was playing Luka ball, essentially. But I still,
it's insane. Yeah.
I'm surprised, I guess, how poorly it aged, and I feel like Harden already kind of doesn't get his respect on the he's not being placed in the right rung of NBA history in terms of what he did for the sport. And I think even that's come up in the news recently as he's kind of talked about the contributions he's made to the game. Okay, so he's 11. Mm-hmm. Then you said there's a 5 and a 4.
Correct.
Durant?
No.
Yeah. Not LeBron?
Yes, LeBron, number 2 with 5.
He had 5?
Yeah.
Am I an idiot? Who's the third one? See, I want to say Melo, but Melo's not in the NBA right now.
It's not, and Devin Booker has more 50-point games than him. So,
right.
Do you want to know?
Yeah, tell me.
Damian Lillard.
Really?
Yeah, he just explodes. He has 4. So
Wow.
in the NBA, games with 55 or more, 55 was just an arbitrary cutoff that I made up because I think there's a lot of 50-point games, and I think every point you score after 50 just becomes more and more difficult.
It's exponentially more difficult.
Yeah.
There's a world of difference between Jamal Crawford's 50 and Devin Booker's 58.
Right. And there's
sure.
and right, a perfect example. And I wanted to know those three players. So I looked up Devin Booker is 26 years old and a certain number of days old. Not very many, right? Like 80-something days old since his birthday's in October. So I looked up the ages of these players to see how many 55-plus point games they had at Devin Booker's age. James Harden had 0. Damian Lillard had 0. LeBron James had 2 because he's absurd. So Devin Booker at his age has 3. Only one of the guys above him on this list, arguably the greatest player of all time, had anywhere close to that, and it was still less than Devin Booker has at his age currently.
I mean, look, man, with the level of poise he's showing, the growth in his decision-making, which I think we've demonstrated time and time again over the past several years, but especially this year, he's just not turning the ball over anymore, really. If he can keep the hamstring issues in check, and I admit that is a very legitimate concern at the moment, because you need... I mean, he played 42 minutes again last night just to win the game, you know? But if he can keep the hamstring issues in check, the next 2 or 3 years of the Devin Booker experience will be... This is his prime. Mm-hmm. This is it right now. You could see 30-point per game seasons. You could see...
And what I thought was kind of
more
fascinating
than that.
is these guys got a lot of these games older. You know, like they got them older because they're just so good at basketball. You know, they're not doing 30 points a game or whatever. You know, Lillard, Harden, yes, but James in particular. But they can just explode for that. Those are the types of things that's going to happen with Devin Booker as it gets later in his career as well. Just you get hot and you just score 50 points. He's, you know, going to fly up this list pretty fast. And I just was curious looking at all these stats when it came to Booker on the Suns and where he stands with the Suns record book. And I switch it over to the league, and it's just insane to see what he's doing and at his age. And I think it just goes a little bit unnoticed, I think, to the overall NBA, you know, fans or media or whatever you want to call it, because of the perception of the Suns right now, which is just, it is what it is. Like, I just really don't, honestly, I don't really give a shit. I don't really care. People want to hate the Suns right now. They'll get over it eventually, and they'll move on to somebody else, and they'll hate somebody else. But
they'll hate the Pelicans pretty soon, I think. We can talk about that. But
yeah, them or whoever, the Grizzlies or
the
whoever
Grizzlies
it's going to be. Young teams who are cocky. I personally, being cocky does not bother me, but people are who they are and whatever it is. But, you know, and I think it doesn't help when you beat a team like the Lakers in the playoffs and they just have a massive fan base that attacks you all the time, and that starts to affect the perception. So whoever beats the Lakers in the playoffs this year is going to be the next hated team.
Yeah, possibly, if the Lakers even make it. I mean, it would be interesting. Lowe was talking the other day. I mean, if we get Lakers Warriors in the play-in, which is totally possible right now, that would be a battle between two humongous fan bases. I just think, like, as it relates to the Suns being hated and whatever, I just wish people would be consistent in their belief systems. I don't understand being mad at teams for talking shit after they win. And for
that is a weird thing.
And for
you always talk when you're up, and it's like, yeah.
There's like the trash talk culture has existed in the NBA for decades.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
people always talk.
Fans are soft. They call players soft. Fans are soft.
Well, I feel like I see so many fans who wear these rose tinted goggles for the 90s and the 80s, and are like, why can't it be like then? And then they freak out if players try to talk shit after they win. Like, that's how the league works. But what bothers me, to contrast that, is you got to admit when you got your ass kicked. Like, sometimes sometimes it's going to fall on the other end of things. Sometimes you're going to lose. And you need to lose or learn to lose with some level of grace and some humility. And I understand when teams don't do that. Case in point, Patrick Beverley shoving Chris Paul at the end of that series because he couldn't accept the fact that he just got his ass kicked. That pisses people off, and that I'm entirely on board with.
It's like a temper tantrum.
Like campaign, even. Like, I'll call it out on our own guys. Campaign complaining about the Zion dunk. It's like, okay, if you're mad, play better next time, and they played better the next time, and they won. But what I will never understand getting mad at teams for gloating after they win. That's the entire culture. That's what it's always been.
Yeah. And it's fun. And also in particular, being mad at young players for doing it, I think is funny too, because it's like, it's more important for the young players to win in the circumstances that they win because they have not been through it all yet. So they're, in a lot of ways, they're experiencing these moments and the things that they're going through for the very first time. So them being cocky, them enjoying it, I think is part of what's fun about watching young players in the NBA. And yeah, you're right, there is no consistency with it. I mean, in particular, a lot of what people like the Pelicans for right now, they also hate the Suns for. So there is no consistency.
I mean, it's just gotten to a point where it's like you see a clip of people celebrating and you'll see the quote tweets and it's like, wow, that's corny. They're celebrating. And it's like, what? We're not allowed to be happy ever? It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we said our piece.
They want they want these players to be robots. They want them to be something that is impossible for them to be. And it's just it. And my whole point is, by the way, about all of this is that what Devin Booker has done and what his career is so far has so easily gone under the radar. And now I say that knowing that I do think that he is getting more attention now than he has ever gotten in his career. Like, he is getting a lot of respect now from the media in particular. I think media people are sort of aware of his greatness now, putting it 11th overall in the NBA on the Ringer. ESPN had him at 10th. Bleacher Report had him at 13th. Like, those are all important accolades. But I think just when I looked at these 55-plus point games and things like that, I think just the historical context for what he's done it surprised even me. And we talk about him every single week, twice a week, not to mention almost every day on Twitter. And I think that just shows
every day when I wake up looking at Booker stats to tweet. Yep, that's what I do.
And it just shows exactly, what I mean. It's remarkable, and it'll continue to get better. By the way, you mentioned keeping his hamstring in check. He is listed currently as questionable for the game against the Lakers due to not his hamstring. They listed it as sore groin. Which, it could be as simple as he played 42 minutes. They want to rest him against a bad team like the Lakers without Anthony Davis, by the way.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just trying to let him rest.
We are doing that game on playback. That will be our first plug. We are doing that. So join us tomorrow. It's our first playback game in maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks. Nothing crazy, but we're back on it. Real quick, before we head to break, I said we would bring this up, so I want to bring it up.
No break today, just so you know.
Okay, good point. Until we segue until the next thing that we had planned in our episode.
Yeah.
Suns Pelicans. It took 58 points for Devin Booker to win this game, which is to say that it was a sensational performance that you just have to respect Booker for. It doesn't necessarily change my overall feelings on just the fact that the Pelicans are a monster to be reckoned with, and a 7-game series, potential 7-game series of that in the playoffs is going to be insanely difficult. Now, it feels like everyone's already hyping this up as the NBA's big rivalry right now. What say you about, are the Suns and Pelicans the NBA's next great rivalry?
I doubt it. I just doubt it. I guess it's possible in the way that, like, the Clippers and the Grizzlies were in the past, where it's like sort of this rivalry that's kind of a blip. It's not this long-lasting rivalry. Like, I think the Suns and the Lakers are going to hate each other a lot more because there's just historical playoff battles that factor into it. Same with the Suns and the Spurs to some respect. But I just don't, the Pelicans thing is just it's a new thing. And I guess if the Pelicans remain competitive, the Suns remain competitive, that's how rivalries are made. And maybe, 20 years from now, these will be the historic evidence of a future rivalry. It just depends on how things go in the future. They would have to match up in the playoffs again. Matching up in the playoffs against a team 2 playoffs in a row, that can have an impact on something becoming a rivalry.
I can't think of the last time that happened for the Suns. I guess probably Spurs.
Yeah, it must have been Spurs. Or I
did
guess
we
the
even
Lakers
play?
Too.
You know what? Yeah, I guess let's see, like 07, 08, we played the Spurs 2 years in a row. We lost both times. Because I was going to say the 06 Western Conference Finals run that they made without Amari, they actually didn't play the Spurs that year. There was like a year gap because they played the Lakers and then the Clippers in the second round and then the Mavericks, who they lost to. So everyone thinks about the Spurs from those years, but they played the Spurs in 05, they lost. And then they played the Spurs in 07, and they lost.
Yeah.
07, 08, I guess, was the last time.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
They lost both times.
And but also like Charles Barkley played against the Spurs in the playoffs. There's
there's reasons to think about the Spurs, but it didn't happen every single year. It happened a lot of times. In fairness,
enough to create a rivalry, and I think the same. Kobe Bryant talked about how he hated the Suns because of their playoff battles and stuff like that. So, there are certain teams where that happens. And the Pelicans could be one of those teams. I think, Zion is like a new addition to this in a way. I think I saw somebody on Twitter, some branded account, trying to say that Suns fans hate Zion, and it's
no.
First of all, like, what percentage of fans watch every regular season game anyway? Like 20%.
There might
so
be
like
some.
They haven't even really seen it. You kind of need a playoff battle to start hating a player, and the Suns have not had that with Zion yet. He can easily become one of the Suns have nobody to guard him. They just have nobody to guard him. So if you play against Zion in the playoffs, you have nobody to guard a guy. He can easily become that because you just hate guys that kill you. And but right now, I just don't see. He's not really. The dunk is. I don't think fans cared about the dunk that much as much as
I don't think so. I mean, look, I'll
they
guarantee
hate Alvarado more than him because he
Exactly.
was a pain in Chris Paul's ass in the playoffs.
Well, and because the narrative around Alvarado is that he's much better than he actually is. But with Zion, people just don't care right now, man. You're exactly right. They can definitely get there. And here's the other thing: there's a certain percentage of the fan base that hates everyone, right? Yeah. They hate Zion because he's on the other team, just like they hate Luka because he's on the other team, or they hate Steph because he's on the other team. Yeah, it's a good
example.
There are some people
Luka
like
compared
that.
To Zion,
but like Luka knocked our ass out.
And
of
the
playoffs.
Suns fans hate Luka a lot more than they hate Zion. If they're
100%.
The tweet that we're talking about claimed that Zion is the most hated athlete in Phoenix, and it's like, what are you talking about?
Okay, but what's the biggest rivalry in the NBA in 2022 if not Suns Pelicans? Is it maybe, I don't know, Bucks Celtics? Is it like Grizzlies Warriors?
No, it's got to be LeBron versus Steph Curry.
Lakers, really? Lakers Warriors?
It's not. I don't think it's really about teams right now.
Two sub 500. That's like trouble.
Yeah,
so you understand why they're trying to hype up Suns Pelicans, because if they're looking at this and they're saying the Warriors are 13-16 and the Lakers are 11-17, we're fucked. Like how do we market this?
Yeah, Knicks Hawks was fun, but the Hawks suck now, by the way.
Yeah, they suck too. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
The Knicks are good now, but the Hawks I'm not really sure about. That's a good point. Maybe the NBA sort of needs this to be a future rivalry, but the Suns do play. By the way, this is our last episode before Christmas. The Suns, well, I guess we could record before Christmas, but the Suns play Denver on Christmas Day. Even that doesn't really feel like a rivalry either, right?
I don't hate Jokic at all. You want to know? I mean, if Jokic beats us this year, then maybe I'll hate him a little bit more. He did have that shove on campaign in that playoff series,
just a slap,
or that slap, but no one cared because we kicked his ass. Like it didn't matter, you know. Campaign was fine, and we swept them, so we had the upper hand the entire time. There was no reason to hate them for that.
I don't even feel like Suns fans hate Giannis.
I don't. I hate the way sometimes that Giannis is officiated. I don't hate Giannis Antetokounmpo, the player, whatsoever. Honestly, I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the NBA.
Luka's next level, man. Luka really. I'll just be honest.
I think there's a Mavs Suns rivalry, right? That because they don't like each other for sure.
Well, I think Luka gets under my skin in a way that most players don't, because I think Giannis and Zion and players like that have natural advantages where it's just like at a certain point you can get frustrated at the way they're officiated or whatever, but like you just throw your hands up and say, "Look, he's a fucking freak. What are you gonna do?" Yeah. Luka is deceptively talented in a way where it really gets under your skin when he's killing you. Yeah. Right? You're like, he's slow, he's fat, just fucking wall up, and he's not that good of a shooter. Just stop him.
He's athletic, but he's not that athletic.
That's not to disrespect Luka, because he's a top 5 player in the NBA, but it's just, that's how it is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If Mavs fans don't like that, I mean, they're going to have to get used to it because, as you know, if he continues to get further and further in the playoffs, which this season, who knows?
Well, it's also
they're gonna make a lot of enemies.
It's also the whining. It's also, recently the diva stuff with his own teammates. There's lots of stuff that's slowly trickling on the Luka file. We're building up a file of all of this propaganda.
Imagine if the Mavs defeat the Lakers in the playoffs, Luka will become hated. That's the type of thing that could easily happen, because that's, Lakers fans will hold grudges forever, and they'll say they should have won, and they'll make up some fake reason that they should have won. That's why I just struggle to care about the way that people feel about the Suns right now. It's just, how much can we even talk about it, I guess is the question. One thing just on Book's game, again, what I thought was amazing too is just the amount of defenders he was scoring on. Dyson Daniels, I think, drew the main assignment. Herb Jones, I think, was on him a lot for a lot of the game. They tried Alvarado at some point when he was already hot, and it's like nobody was guarding him. And then, of course, he forced Zion onto him over and over and over again. Talking about the Pelicans as a rivalry, the Suns have nobody to guard Zion, but Zion is also not good at guarding on the perimeter, and they do switch in a similar way to the Suns. And they have to make him give up as much points as he's getting us with, and Devin Booker being the only guy who can currently punish that is tough. I think Cameron Payne would have some advantages in that switch as well. But if you're talking about trying to, if they become a team that the Suns are looking like they're going to play in the playoffs, they're going to have to find somebody else who can attack off the dribble, because that's going to be an interesting thing.
That's their weak point. That's their Achilles heel right now. Is as you look at New Orleans defensively, it's the fact that either they have to play Zion on the perimeter and they're going to switch him, and he's gonna be the pigeon that you can attack. Or, sometimes people suggest, well, what if you play Zion at the 5? What if you just drop him back and kind of keep him out of the action? That's a problem too, because if you've noticed, and Josh Okogie being the main beneficiary last night, but it's happened to them a bunch of times this season, when Jonas Valanciunas isn't on the floor, New Orleans has no one who can rebound, no one who can successfully put a body on someone and consistently win their defensive rebounding battles, Zion included. Zion does get his 8 or 9 rebounds a game or whatever, but he's not really what you need him to be in order to play him at center, in addition to not moving his feet well enough to be consistently the pick and roll big man defender. So Zion Williamson's defense could be an issue. It could be an ongoing issue for the Pelicans. Obviously, he has some amazing athletic capabilities that it's, I don't want to act like he's Michael Porter Jr., maybe certain other defenders that the Suns have played in the past. He can leap out of the gym, and if he's in the right place at the right time, his weak side defense, there are a lot of things about him that can be exceptional. But targeting him specifically one-on-one, you can generate real advantages there. And it'll be interesting to see if the Suns continue to do that if they do meet up in the playoffs.
All right, is it time?
Yeah, we've done a good job.
Can we talk about him? Can we talk about him now?
We've done a good job of not really. You mentioned him in the first 10 seconds, which I was hoping you wouldn't.
I'm so excited about him. I'm sorry.
But go for it.
Josh Okogie, man, he has rocked. And this is the kind of thing that, look, maybe it's me and you who watch every game and, we have to obsess over this team in a way. And there's just, every once in a while, there are just these gifts that happen, like these things that happen in the middle of the season that are like, here, you can talk about this now. And Josh Okogie is giving you and I a gift to be able to talk about him and what he's done for this team in the last few weeks. Well, last 5 or 6 games, really. And it's just been so fun to watch. 7
or 8 games at this point. It's been like the entire month of December that he's been awesome. Even during the stretch last week, we talked about him briefly last week, I think, where we were like, hey, Okogie's been awesome. The team sucked, but look at Okogie.
Yeah.
So that was like 4 games
when we traded the whole team, we kept Okogie.
Yeah, because that was
the Patreon podcast.
We traded the entire team on the midweek Patreon after the Boston Celtics loss by
Massacre.
40. That we also did on playback, by the way. I think that's why we took such a long break from playback to not do a game until tomorrow. And we were just pissed off at the whole team. We were like, we're just trading everyone for this episode. It was a lot of fun. People enjoyed it, I think. At least we got mostly positive feedback from that. But yeah, we kept Okogie as the one guy because it was like, look, he at least tried in the game against Boston, and he has continued to try. And it's evolved from a situation where Monty was like, okay, I guess I got to play this guy 7 or 8 minutes because I have no one else, to now, I think we're calling for it. I think other people are calling for it. Even when Cam Johnson comes back,
He's got to play.
Keep that man in the rotation. Keep him in the rotation. He's got to play. And not just play 7 or 8 minutes. I think he's got a solid
20
case.
minutes, yeah. 20,
I think he's got a
25
solid
minutes.
case for a 15 to 20 minute role at least, even with a healthy Cam Johnson in the rotation.
Per 36 minutes, Josh Okogie is averaging 4.3 offensive rebounds. 4.3 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes. That is the most on the Suns. That's more than Jock Landale. That's more than DeAndre Ayton. It's more than Bismack Biyombo. It's more than Torrey Craig. He's an absurd offensive rebounder. It's kind of crazy to watch him do it because he has offensive limitations, but I think we can talk about how they can figure out ways to work with that, which they're doing right now. But understanding his offensive limitations also allows him to focus on the things that he's good at. And one of the things that he's good at is offensive rebounds, which is an offensive skill. And finding ways to give the Suns extra possessions, which, as we've talked about many times on this podcast, they lose the possession game so often. And with a guy like Marcus Smart playing, Torrey Craig playing, Jock Landale, also an excellent offensive rebounder, they're pretty good at offensive rebounds as a team this year. And I think Josh Okogie, you can easily compare him to, I guess we have to say him, but Landry Shamet at this point because he can take the minutes of Landry Shamet. And Landry Shamet is just bad all around at everything right now. He's not shooting well. He's not dribbling well. His defense is fine, but it's nowhere close to what Josh Okogie can provide on defensive. I'm not sure any player on the Suns is as good on defense as Josh Okogie is.
Landry Shamet's defense is not in the same universe as Josh Okogie's.
Yeah, so it's like, how do you not give him minutes? And I know it's hard. Obviously, like a game like yesterday where Devin Booker carries the whole game, then it's kind of easy to give him minutes because the entire offense is around what Devin Booker is doing. But I think, they used him as a screener, which we can talk about. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Josh Okogie?
Well, here's the other thing real quick is that over the past 8 games, Okogie's shooting 35% from deep. And I'm as hard on Landry Shamet as anyone. To be slightly fair to Landry Shamet, Josh Okogie's 35% is him spotting up, taking wide open threes. I'm talking no defender within 15 feet in the corner. Landry Shamet's,
and like one a game.
Yeah. Landry Shamet's 37% from deep is him running around screens, doing the whole off-ball thing. That's as far as I will go to defend Shamet, which is to say that if Okogie continues to shoot 35%, he's, with all the other stuff that he does great, he's earned the time. Now, if that becomes 25% again, which is like kind of regressing back to where his career has been, it becomes more difficult because teams are just going to ignore him. And if a wide open Okogie 3 can't even produce 1 point per possession, then you're going to have an issue. And obviously, you're going to have, to some extent, an issue in the regular season. Where you're really going to have an issue is once you get into the playoffs, because we have seen time and time again players. One obvious example who always comes to mind for me is Matisse Thybulle with the Sixers, who is just as exceptional a perimeter defender as you can find, but year after year sees his role reduced in the playoffs because it's just like teams leave him open. The Sixers are playing 4-on-5 on offense, and there's Thybulle shooting 26% from deep, and it's just not viable. So Okogie needs to continue to be like minimum 30% guy. If he can do that, he does a lot of interesting stuff, actually. It's not just the defense. He also has a 3-to-1 assist turnover ratio.
Exactly.
In this stretch. And, as I think you were kind of alluding to, that means that the Suns can start to use him in kind of the Bruce Brown role, like to think of another example of a guy who does this, of he can become the short roll playmaker who comes up, flashes to the middle while Devin Booker is being trapped in the fourth quarter. And make plays out of that. Even if he's not scoring the bucket himself, he can find someone else who can score.
There's 2 things on that I want to mention. Number 1, the best way to mitigate bad shooting is passing if you're a guard or if you're someone that's not a finisher, which he's not a finisher because he's short. So if you can pass, then all of a sudden you can mitigate bad shooting. There's a lot of great examples of guys who can pass that can't shoot. Draymond Green is the best example. Rajon Rondo, Ricky Rubio, there's Chris Paul this year. There's a lot of guys who can mitigate their mediocre to bad shooting with passing. That means the ball does have to be in his hands. It does not make sense to start the play with the ball in his hands, so you can use him as a screener. The other part of using him as a screener that is nice and that works is he's the worst offensive player on the court, basically at all times. No disrespect to him, just what it is. But what does that mean for the other team? They're hiding their worst defender on Josh Okogie. So Devin Booker's dribbling the ball up the floor. He calls Josh Okogie for the screen. Well, the guy guarding Josh Okogie in that scenario is the worst defender. So you're putting the worst perimeter defender in an action with Devin Booker. Their only option in that case is to trap, because if they switch, now Devin Booker has the worst defender on him. If they do anything else, if they play some sort of drop, which they can't really do because they don't have a big on Josh Okogie, it's like they're in this scenario where it's like a lose-lose situation defensively. So yes, the ball is out of Devin Booker's hands pretty fast in those scenarios. But now you have a guy in Josh Okogie in the middle of the floor, like you said, has a good assist to turnover ratio, can attack the rim if they just leave a wide open lane for him.
By the way,
and can make the right read in a pass. It's just beautiful to watch.
By the way, maybe not a great finisher. For all of his struggles as a three-point shooter, if he attacks hard and gets fouled, he's a deceptively good free throw shooter. Josh Okogie, he's not hitting his threes, but he can make 75% of his free throws, and that matters. That definitely does matter.
Bruce Brown is a great example of a player that's short and can set screens, and he just becomes a playmaker. And it's a tiny Draymond Green is essentially what we're asking of Josh Okogie right now. Defensive playmaker. Devin Booker gets trapped over and over and over again. You have a guy in the middle of the floor that can make the play.
And it's not just in the short roll either, by the way, because what that enables Okogie to do, the fact that Monty trusts him to have the ball in his hands a little bit, we didn't see it in last night's game, but we saw it in other games earlier this week. They'll let him bring the ball up occasionally. Yeah. They'll let him bring the ball up. And they trust him to do that and not turn the ball over. And that might not sound like much because he's not going to bring the ball up and then, call for a screen and pull up into a three or make his own offense. But
although he should, the pull-up threes are better than the catch and shoots for him still.
You can allow him to set up the offense with someone else on the floor, be it Devin Booker or Mikal Bridges. Yeah. You can allow them to set up on the wing, take a screen, maybe do, the Suns' elbow set or their two-up set or whatever they want to do that they usually run in most of their half-court offense, but it just gives you another option to set up your offense. It's huge.
The book is out on Landry. If he's dribbling the ball down, pressure, get up in his face, force him to make decisions. He can't drive, and he'll lose the ball. Josh Okogie can't. He's not going to do that. For one, he can drive past you if you give him the lane, and he's not afraid of the contact to get to the free throw line, so you can't put the same kind of pressure on him that you do Landry Shamet. If you get a great defender, you can. But usually you're not going to put a great defender on Josh Okogie. It just doesn't make sense. So having him bring the ball up makes a lot of sense. You mentioned Bruce Brown. I think that's an obvious comparison. A tiny Draymond Green, I'll say it again, an obvious comparison for him. I'm going to give another one. This player, let me just read his three-point percentages year by year over his career. He's a shorter guy, about the same size as Josh Okogie. First year, shot 4 threes, 33%. Shot 4 or more threes the next few years. Here's his three-point percentage, 25%, 28%, 30%, and then jumped up to 36%. The player I'm talking about right now is a Boston Celtics player, and his name is Marcus Smart.
Interesting.
Now, I'm not saying that Josh Okogie could just win Defensive Player of the Year, but if you could find a way to get Josh Okogie up to 30 or more minutes because his shot is fine, which is just a pie-in-the-sky thing, right? I'm not saying it's ever possible. If he figures the game out well enough that he can shoot some threes and be effective and make some plays on the ball and be effective in that way, you can kind of use him in a Marcus Smart role. He's not going to be Marcus Smart, but you can see how they've used him in the past and try to use him in a similar way. Now, the big thing with Marcus Smart is he fixed his shot. He's a pretty effective three-point shooter. Later in his career, 36%, 34%, 33%, 33%, 33%. So now he's consistently shooting 33% on 5, sometimes 6 3-point shots a game, which also is not something you can ever expect out of Okogie.
Also a guy, by the way, who has always made his free throws, right? That's why it was such a mystery with Marcus Smart, too. Always made his free throws. Mm-hmm. Couldn't make his threes until about year 4 or 5, just like you're saying.
Yeah. So now I make this comparison not to say that Josh Okogie could ever be Marcus Smart, but I think there is somewhat of a archetype role for him that you can figure out. Now, it might lean more Bruce Brown if he can't figure out how to shoot at least 30 to 33% from the three-point line. But there is, I think, a world where you can play him a little bit more. And even in some cases, I hate to say this, maybe sit Chris Paul at the end of a game and play Devin Booker at point guard with Josh Okogie. Just sort of that secondary guard, playmaker, dribbler, screener, however utility knife, if you will, that can help you out, and you don't have to worry about Chris Paul just kind of getting abused depending on the team. Maybe Luka Doncic, for example.
Well, and by the way, for Okogie, in terms of what incentive does Okogie have to do this, it's pretty obvious. Every single member of the Suns development, training, coaching staff right now should be sitting him down and telling him, you fix this shot, you are looking at $15 or $20 million a year. That's how talented he is on defense. That's what Marcus Smart is making.
Yeah.
Like, that's the type of money. Like, the difference between you continuing to do your thing where you're going to be on an NBA roster, but you're going to be making minimum or close to minimum, or setting up your family for generations to come.
Yeah.
Is all dependent on 5 percentage points on your 3-point shot. So work on your 3-point shot. That's all that matters to you right now.
Him playing well and actually getting minutes, I think, comes at an important time as well, because the last thing you and I wanted to talk about was the Suns are not playing good defense right now.
Nope.
Their defensive rating has sort of tanked. I looked at the stats for the last 15 games. I dug into some lineup stats. Every time Josh Okogie is on the floor, as you can imagine, the defense is great. You put him on the floor with Mikal Bridges, the defense kind of skyrockets. It's really good when both of those guys are on the floor. But, he hasn't played a ton, and they're just sort of working him into the rotation at different times. I think he played like 15, 16 minutes straight last night. But they're finding ways to get him on the floor, and they need it. And I looked at it, Sam, and the starters are the culprit for the defense right now. It's the lineups with the starters, not obviously the intended starters for this season, but the lineups with the starters, whether it be with Payne or with Chris Paul, have been really bad defensively. It's slightly worse with Chris Paul, but not in a way that you could sort of blame it all on Chris Paul. Although those lineups, they were not great with Torrey Craig, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges. They look really bad right now, but there's not enough time to really judge that. But it's the starters that are kind of getting killed. And yes, there are some blowouts in there. I think if you take out the blowouts, that probably has some impact to these stats. But the Suns are not playing with the same kind of defensive intensity that they became known for last season in the last 15, 20 or so games. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I am not going to pin it on any one guy, but I am curious to know if you noticed who among all those players who has the absolute worst defensive rating on the Suns right now.
Booker, right?
Not on the stats I'm looking at.
Okay, I looked at the last 15 games.
Okay, I'm looking at the entire season overall.
I'm guessing it is it DeAndre Ayton?
It's not DeAndre Ayton. He's second worst. And Booker, by the way, so Booker is third worst. Ayton is second worst. I'm curious if you know who's worst. It's Torrey Craig.
It's Torrey Craig. Yeah, okay, that makes sense, obviously.
It's Torrey Craig. And it's actually it's
pretty bad.
It's kind of by a considerable margin, too. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty bad.
Booker's defensive rating is 114.1. It's not good.
Yeah, 117 in the last 15 games.
Ayton's defensive rating, right, the stats I'm quoting are for the entire season. Ayton's at 114.2. Craig is at 116.7.
Yeah, that's a lot for this rating. By the way, defensive rating, larger number, worse. Just to be clear.
Yes, yeah, it means you can translate it as bad. Theoretically, this is the number of points per 100 possessions, which is roughly the length of a normal game.
24-second shot clock. Yeah.
That the team is giving up with this player on the floor. So this with Torrey Craig on the floor this season, the Suns are giving up roughly 117 points per 100 possessions. Yeah. Just ask yourself if giving up 117 points in a game, your average game, is good. Obviously, the answer is no. That's not good. Now, obviously, got to get it out of the way. Defensive rating is not an individual statistic, which is why it's not fair to look at this number and just say Torrey Craig is worst on the roster, therefore it's all his fault. It is not
but
his fault.
It is indicative over the, like, a sample size as large as what we have with Torrey Craig so far.
It does start to...
It's pretty bad.
It does start to point at trends, which you can start to look at and say, hey, man, sample size here is pretty large. This is looking... Eventually, you kind of can't deny anymore when something is or isn't statistically significant, right? And this is why I don't want to put it all on Craig. DeAndre Ayton is so integral to every defensive possession for the Suns as well, and I just think there have been some games where he's been great, and I think there have been some games that he's taken off defensively, and that's just the way it is. So that's why it's like...
The defensive numbers are not good for DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah.
They're so far this year. They're bad.
So I want to get that out of the way, too.
And to be fair... On this, I want to say, too, this is also the worst defensive rating of Mikal Bridges' career.
Yeah, I don't think he's been all defensive first-team material either, by any means, by the way. Craig specifically, though, I think it's kind of interesting to ask ourselves, so why is he the one, right? Why have they been the worst with him on the floor? Because theoretically speaking, just like you think about who Torrey Craig is on paper, he's a good rebounder. He's a relatively big body. He is long. You know, for fuck's sake, they had him be the one who is guarding Zion
until Josh Okogie took it.
In those first two matchups until Josh Okogie took it. And so why is that? Why are they playing poorly with Torrey Craig on the floor? I mean, I have a
theory.
No, I've like watched, film and stuff too. I think I know why it is, but I'll give the floor to you first.
I think it's because he's bad offensively.
Because he's bad offensively. That's interesting.
Here's what I mean. I think that the Suns have been spread so thin with the injuries that they have had that players who are normally playing within their role have been forced pretty extensively to play outside of their role. Devin Booker has been forced to carry this team to an extent that he has never been forced to carry this team in the past. Now, Devin Booker still tries defensively, but when Devin Booker has help, he's a better defender because he can focus on both sides of the ball a lot more. And I think the same is true with Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges on the court, with Cameron Johnson on the court, Mikal Bridges and his offensive role shrinks pretty dramatically, I will say, especially if DeAndre Ayton is there too. Now, both of those guys on the floor, Mikal Bridges now, his main utility becomes defensively, and he does not have to overextend himself offensively. And Mikal, for the record, I think he's not healthy fully right now. He just plays, right? Where other guys would take games off, Mikal has bad games, right? That's the difference because he's hurt.
He admitted as much. He appears on, JJ Redick's podcast time and again as like their correspondent or whatever. I don't know what his official title is over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he made another appearance this week and he kind of even said that. He was like, yeah, I mean, I just play and I've been hurt, he admitted it. He's been hurt.
Yeah.
He just plays.
Right? And there's a difference with him, right? Is that you trade, I said it like this before, but you trade off games for bad games, right? You trade games where he doesn't play for games where he doesn't play as well as he normally could. It's not to say that he's bad. Sometimes he is, but usually he's pretty good still, but not the Mikal Bridges that we're used to. This team did not become bad at defending, right? They didn't become bad at defending overnight. I think there was still a really good defensive team in there. They've been spread so thin with what they're forced to do. Now, that's not to say that Craig is a good defender and it falls off of him. I think team defense wise, he's not the other guys that have been in that role in the past. Jay Crowder, very good. Cameron Johnson, very good. And also, they don't really trust Craig to do as much as those other guys. Jay Crowder switched a lot more. Craig switches occasionally. There's different things that they are allowing Craig to do that they would do more with other guys in those roles. Well, but I do think that other players have been asked to do so much more because of their lack of depth, because of the level of injuries, that it hurts the team overall defensively.
I think that's a good point because I didn't think about it in that way, and I definitely think that plays part of it here. But I still fall back on the main reason being the other thing that you were just talking about. I think you nailed it when it's like, you brought it up a few weeks ago actually too. It's like, do we miss Jay Crowder now? And I think you kind of watch Torrey Craig. I'm not talking about, I actually think his on-ball defense continues to be fine. I think he's a disruptive on-ball defender. He's exactly, the prototype that you'd want to stick in those situations. He's long. Okay, he can't guard Zion. No one can guard Zion in single coverage. It just doesn't happen. but the number of times that I've watched the Suns, their perimeter defense, their 3-point defense is just slipping this year. It's just pretty bad. And the number of times specifically that I've watched Devin Booker and Torrey Craig miscommunicate on what like should be an X out.
Yeah.
And then they're stuck there looking at like, like one guy's supposed, for those who don't know, the X out is a way to keep up your perimeter defense, specifically your 3-point shooting defense, where one guy's going to run to the corner and at the same time the other guy's going to run up to the wing.
Say two guys converge on Zion.
Sure.
Right, and now he passes the ball out to the perimeter. It's where all the other guys run when the ball goes back out to the perimeter.
It's generally the principle of just because you started a possession. This is what team defense is. Just because you started a possession guarding one guy doesn't mean that's the guy you're guarding for the entire possession. That's not your guy. Yes, it is man-to-man defense like at its core, but if you're the closest to a shooter because Devin Booker has to go and help, and you're Torrey Craig and you're the closest guy to the corner now, you have to be mindful of that and you have to be ready to run out there and guard that guy. And then if you're Devin Booker, you need to be thinking at the same time, I need to complete the rotation and go take who was Torrey Craig's guy. Otherwise, this entire thing is going to fall apart. And the number of times that I've kind of seen it fall apart for them over the past 2 weeks, it's like then they're sitting there looking at each other, both shrugging their shoulders like, hey, man, what the hell is that? They got to figure that out. They got to figure that out. Everyone
guards everyone. And, like you're talking about Devin Booker helping and then trying to rotate out. If he's spent the last 8 possessions dribbling the ball and being the only person who could dribble and looking for his own shot because nobody else can shoot, it becomes harder for him too, and that's the point. But I think an example of what the difference is between, and this is not all on Torrey Craig, I just want to say that, but guys that play, Jay Crowder, Cameron Johnson, but in particular, I'm going to say Jay Crowder right now. Jay Crowder starts a possession. He sees where guys are standing. He'll predict the play they're going to run. He knows the play they're going to run. He also knows the best place to stand to disrupt that play. He also knows the way to rotate when players need to rotate. Now, is he going to block the shot? Is he going to steal the ball? Maybe not. But is he going to disrupt what the other team is trying to do enough to make the shot at the end of that play a more difficult shot, even if he's not the one guarding it? Yes. That's what team defense is. These guys are geniuses defensively, and Jay Crowder was a genius defensively. I know that I've gone out of my way to try and defend him this year, but he was and probably still is a genius defensively, with physical limitations that is capable of disrupting the offensive flow of the other team on or off the ball in a way that somebody like Torrey Craig cannot really. Ish Wainwright, who has been, I would say, bad defensively so far this year, but has a pretty amazing net rating, by the way. But he's not capable of doing what Jay Crowder can do. And to some extent, Cameron Johnson is just a smart basketball player too, so he's capable of. Cameron Johnson is really great at rotating to shooters, as the point that you were trying to make on Torrey Craig. And I do think there's some effort things. With
it might
when
take
they're
a
getting
shooter.
Beat, they gave up.
It takes a shooter to know a shooter. In
Cameron
right. Johnson's case, It's
and
like,
Jay Crowder's, because look, Jay Crowder, he may not make them, but he's a shooter. He's gonna shoot them. He's not afraid of shooting. If you look at Joe Mazzulla's Quizlet, Jay Crowder is a shooter, according to Joe Mazzulla. So yeah, I mean, look, I think, like I said, to recap how I feel about defense, and I wonder how you feel at the end of this all. I think that once they're healthy, once they get guys back, assuming that ever happens, I think there's a good defensive team in here, and I think they're going to get back to it. In particular, if DeAndre keeps up how he's been playing in the more recent games before he was injured, I think they'll be okay. I'm not overly concerned.
Neither am I.
But I do think there will still be a Jay Crowder missing unless they find a way to replace him. Vanderbilt, they've been connected to. That could help.
I still think there are going to continue to be structural questions about their defense, but ultimately their defense will be fine. Those questions will mostly be, I think, effort-related when it comes to DeAndre Ayton. Is he bringing it every night? We need the physical edge. They're going to be coming at Chris Paul. We didn't even talk about him in this discussion because
he's a problem too, right? Yeah.
He's his own problem, but I think we didn't really mention him in this discussion because he hasn't been playing that much recently, right? Mm-hmm. So, I don't blame the recent defensive rating on him. In fact, his defensive rating on the season is much better than all the other starters who we're talking about. That doesn't take away from the fact that late in games, you have a mismatch problem there. You need to hide Chris Paul on someone. But, yeah, we kind of singled out Torrey Craig in this discussion. And, look, if you're Torrey Craig, Josh Okogie's coming. Like, honestly, Cam Johnson.
He played the whole fourth quarter.
Cam Johnson is going to be back soon, and I know we mentioned the fact that, Okogie could take minutes from Shamet. He could just as easily take minutes from you if you're Torrey Craig. So you gotta be, and he did. Gotta be a little worried.
He did against the Pelicans. He just did. Look, we have more that we have to talk about. We're gonna have to move it to a Patreon podcast because I wanted to ask you. We're gonna talk about him. We're going to talk about Pascal Siakam again.
Okay,
we're going to talk about Zach Lowe mentioned John Collins again to the Suns, and maybe even I have some thoughts on the trade deadline that are maybe a little more, we'll call them hot takes that I'll save for a Patreon podcast, but that's all we got for this one. But if you want to join us for a Patreon podcast, you can join us patreon.com/thetimeline. We'll talk about those extra things because the Raptors, by the way, lost again in a pretty dramatic way today. They're 13-17. Maybe they will end up blowing it up, and the Suns have some players that they can trade at some point. You got anything else before we go on this one?
Playback tomorrow night against the Lakers. Hopefully Booker plays.
Tonight,
we know for a fact. Sorry, tonight. The 19th. Maybe it'll already have passed by the time you listen to this. That's fine. Anthony Davis will not be playing.
Maybe no Devin Booker. Maybe no DeAndre Ayton. But we'll still be watching it. And the Suns, they haven't lost to the Lakers yet. So we'll see if they keep that winning streak alive. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Yeah, back soon.